All right, guys. Justin and Doug. Henry Cejudo,
Wow.
the flyweight division
Wow.
lives.
Wow.
What do you make of that?
I predicted he was going to win, but man, I didn't think it was going to be in 32 seconds. Even towards the last couple of days of the fight, I was kind of even thinking maybe TJ because TJ made weight. That was a big worry, and he made weight. He looked pretty good physically. And then I'm thinking to myself, like, does Cejudo have enough striking to really hurt TJ? And TJ, we all know, has power. He could definitely hurt Cejudo. We've seen Cejudo get knocked out before, so I was thinking maybe TJ would have a better chance, but I still stuck with Cejudo because I just felt like at his weight class, he's more comfortable. He's an Olympic-level athlete. It would have to go into deep waters. He wouldn't be able to finish him in any type of way in the first 3 rounds or so, and I felt like if it went to decision, then Cejudo would win the fight.
Right.
What?
Like you
right
would
off
think.
the bat.
Dillashaw was going to be striking.
Yes.
The grappling game, that's going to be all Cejudo.
Right.
So
And it wasn't.
I battled with it all week. Like we were talking last week, I picked Dillashaw.
Yep.
But, I mean, Cejudo just verbally, and you could just tell his mindset. He was on fire this last 2 weeks going into the fight, and you saw what happened. I mean, the tiniest little slip from Dillashaw, Cejudo capitalized on it. Took him, like you said, 32 seconds. Still the flyweight champion. I don't know, if we're going to get an answer out of Dana tonight even. He still may be up in the air.
Right.
We're going to go back to the office on Tuesday when we decide the matches, and we'll see what happens, and we'll get that typical answer.
Right.
I don't know if we'll get that answer tonight.
And that's the thing, too, is Dana was very non-committal. I mean, he was getting hammered with questions. What happens to the flyweight division? What happens? We'll see. We'll see. I know Dana didn't expect this. I even felt like Dana wanted TJ Dillashaw to win. I felt like that he was even willing to move on from Henry Cejudo if he lost. Now it spun everything upside down. Like, we have a totally different outlook and everything about the division, about Henry Cejudo, about TJ Dillashaw. And that's what's so great about fighting, right? Like, you come in with one storyline and you leave with 10 different ones.
Yeah.
And so the question is now is how valuable is Henry Cejudo to the UFC?
Right.
I mean, you just put that on ESPN Plus. You put that as the main event. You just crown him with the very first new belt. Like, Cejudo has to be one of those guys that you plan really pushing to the moon in 2019.
You have to. He's beat DJ and TJ within the last 6 months.
He really reminds me of what they wanted in Kane. Like, he is a light version of Kane. He can get that Mexican market. He can speak Spanish. He can speak English. He's an Olympic gold medalist. Like, you cannot deny all the good things that Cejudo has. And not only that, if I would have told you that there was going to be a fighter that would beat TJ Dillashaw and Mighty Mouse, you would have told me that, man, that fighter is one of the greatest fighters of all time. That's what Cejudo just did back to back. So it's incredible. It really is. And it just, to me, DJ's stock continues to drop. You've left the UFC. You didn't want a rematch with Cejudo. You refused to fight TJ. And yet we're supposed to talk about you as one of the all-time greats, and know that you're going to one where we don't even know the quality of competition that you're really going to be facing.
Well, obviously the man's getting paid.
For sure.
I mean, he's getting a big check to go overseas to go do those fights.
For sure.
So.
But, I mean, it's props to him for getting paid and all that stuff, but at some point you want to talk about legacy, you want to talk about being mentioned as one of the greats. Cejudo, to me, just showed balls of steel and put everything on the line and delivered huge these last two fights.
He's a star right now. After tonight, he has solidified himself as one of the top stars in the UFC.
So the question is now, does he want to stay in his own division that he fought for and fight the number one contender, which has been Benavidez, or does he want to move up to 135 and fight TJ? Because I promise you, TJ wants that fight. That's exactly what TJ wants. And let's talk about the stoppage. Did you think it was an early stoppage?
No.
Okay. So I think it could have gone longer, but I think that TJ was getting worked.
He ultimately would have taken more damage.
Agreed. And I think TJ has a hard time admitting that. He even said that basically he didn't beat me tonight. You were getting worked. And if you look at the replay on a couple of those shots, like TJ was in la-la land.
His heart was broken. He was so dead set on being that champ.
Yep.
Not even that. He was already talking about going to 145,
yep.
fight Max Holloway and become the champ.
Yep. And, so. I mean, you want to talk about a guy that had been on the rise and then just totally, I mean, his momentum is crushed. And so that's the danger of these champ fights, too. Because if you look at it, right, you had Amanda Nunes, you had Cyborg, right? Cyborg is just destroyed. She destroyed everything that she had going for her. You look at TJ, yes, he's still the champ. Everything's fine. But, man, that next number one contender match at 135, whoever he ends up fighting, there's no way he's walking in with the same confidence. There's no way. Right. So it's interesting.
Which in 2 weeks, that's where we get our Marlon Moraes and Rafael Sunsao.
Right.
And you would think the winner of that fight would be the next contender. We'll see if Cejudo actually moves up immediately to challenge to do the rematch with Dillashaw for the title.
Right.
I don't know. I'm doubting it. But you don't really know with matchmaking these days.
Well, and I feel like, though, if you're looking at money-wise, right, would a rematch at 135 do better than Cejudo and Benavidez? I think so.
Right.
So I think that could be the fight. But we'll see. So, yeah, great main event. I wish it would have went longer. You're on ESPN Plus. You're representing the sport. I wouldn't mind them seeing a battle of attrition, 3 to 4 round type fight with a crazy finish or something like that, because there's a lot of eyeballs on this thing that have never watched or haven't watched in a long time. So that's the only gripe I have, because when you're having two champions from different weight classes fight, you'd rather have it not go 32 seconds, but at least there was a finish. And so that's good as well, because you don't want a boring 5-round fight either. So.
And it's funny how the first event on Fox 7 years ago, Cain Velasquez, Junior Dos Santos.
Right.
Same thing. It was like a minute, heavyweight title fight, flash knockout, it was over.
Right. And
just
then,
like this.
And then if you watch the next two rematches from that feud, I mean, it's just bloodbath wars.
Right.
And so it's just weird how sometimes the sport goes that way.
Yeah. And before we got to that, one of the I don't know. I hope Cejudo really gets the spotlight on him that he deserves. But we're going to see what happens with this Greg Hardy fight with Alan Crowder. He loses by disqualification to Crowder, his first loss of his career, with the illegal knee that, I mean, he obviously knew was down. It's just like you're going to allude to here. The inexperience and him being rushed into the spotlight like this is pretty much the worst thing that could have happened as far as a result in the fight for Hardy, because before all of this, when he already had the domestic violence controversy, now he's going to have this whole new layer topped on it as far as what is he doing in mixed martial arts.
Right. So you have Greg Hardy, who is the former domestic violence abuser, and then you also have him now labeled as a cheater, right? You have a guy that wanted to take the easy way out. Honestly, in my opinion, if you look at the replay, I think Crowder definitely flopped. He did not look like he was really knocked out or anything like that. When he's going down, you can see his eyes are totally clear, everything. He took advantage of the situation. Not only that, the referee's basically like yelling at Greg Hardy saying that if he can't get up, then I'm going to disqualify you. Why on earth is he going to get up then? Like, he knows at that point I've won the fight.
And you know he heard that.
Right. And so this is my problem I have with it, though. When they first signed Greg Hardy on the Contender Series, right, they signed him to like a developmental deal. They gave him one fight on Fight Pass. He smoked the guy, and then they're like, oh, you're ready for the big show. It's clear he's not ready. It's totally clear he's not ready. He looked like a complete novice on the ground. He looked like he had no idea what he was doing in a lot of the situations. And I think it's a combination of a couple of things. I think the fans are tired of seeing bad MMA on the biggest shows, right? Like the CM Punk fights, the Greg Hardy fights. Like, you should not be on these type of shows if you're that inexperienced. Yes, the UFC wants to make money off your name, and I get that. But I feel like these guys should be on smaller circuit shows. Put them on Fight Pass. and let them grow, let them learn the rules, for crying out loud.
It's the freak show factor.
It is, and I think the UFC should be past the freak show factor. I really do, and I think that hopefully with this, with the CM Punk thing, James Toney versus Randy Couture, like we've seen this type of stuff. Kimbo Slice, like we've seen this type of stuff, and I'm ready for bad MMA to go away. And not only that, like you see in that card some high level stuff, and then you see this, and I'm like, my whole time I'm thinking, wow, like if this Alan Crowder guy knew any submissions, I mean, Greg Hardy's neck's wide open here, his arm's open here, you could give him an armbar right here, you could take a guillotine here. Greg Hardy, you could do a guillotine right here, you could do, like they didn't know what they were doing, both of them. Right. So I wasn't overly impressed by Crowder at all. I do think that the fight was starting to go his way. He kind of put on that Nick Diaz talking crap, walking you down type thing. He stalled it out for a little bit, and then he just started talking mad trash to him, then started throwing punches. Greg Hardy looked like he was a little lost in the lights and not really knowing how to respond. But yeah, sloppy MMA. At the end of the day, it was sloppy MMA. Greg Hardy needs more work. I don't think he belongs in the UFC at this point. It's clear that he has some striking ability. He's very fast. He's got long reach on his punches. He hits hard, but that's really all he has. And not only that, his chin is wide open. I mean, wide open. So if he faced anybody with some real like elite striking skill, I mean, he is going to sleep. So
you want to see a rematch?
Not really. Not really. Maybe on a prelim, I think the fact of putting him on a co-main event and all that stuff, no, that shouldn't have happened. I also think too, in Dana's defense, all he's seen is like 4 fights of this guy just completely destroy people in a couple of minutes. Right. He didn't know what he is, and that's why I think that Greg Hardy has a chance of being cut, just because you kind of see like, holy moly, this guy has a lot of work to do.
That's what I was going to say. Does he get a second chance? Does he get cut? Let him get more experience somewhere else. We'll see if we'll bring him back, kind of talk, or what they're going to do with him.
I mean, I think he's luckily in the division of where you can kind of get away with bad MMA, like a heavyweight division. It's not necessarily the most agile people. It's not necessarily the most skilled level people. A lot of it has to do with power. Now, granted, when you're in the top of the top, absolutely it does. But you see a lot of the undercard heavyweight MMA, and it's not the best. So I mean, I think he could fight something like that, but I mean, I don't think he could beat anybody in like the top 15 of the heavyweight division. Like,
not at all. No.
So I don't see the point in going through all this media backlash and all this stuff over Greg Hardy. I just don't.
Well, you saw when he was on the ground. I mean, it's just he doesn't
no
know what
clue.
He's doing.
I mean, he's like holding his arm out like this, and then when he could. Going for mounts and stuff, Greg Hardy like doesn't even try to stop his leg from going over. Like it's novice stuff. So not a big fan.
Lightweight division. Look for up and comer Gregor Gillespie.
Yeah,
got his 6th win in the UFC. He's now 13-0. Gets a win over Yancy Medeiros, who's veteran of the UFC. And as Gillespie entered this fight number 15 in the division. And I would say give him a top 10 guys. Let's see what this guy's really made of now. He's already, like I said, won 6 straight in the UFC.
Right.
You can feed him the number 12, 13 guy. Throw him in the top 10. See what he's got. The lightweight division's been so competitive. You really have to go on a long streak to really get your name out there.
Right.
But I think right now is about the time for him to do it.
Yeah. He's kind of got a weird look to him too. One thing I don't like about him though is they said that like he will not, like during fights, like interviews, stuff like that, he will not talk about his opponents like at all.
He just talks about going on fishing trips.
Yeah, he talks about going on fishing trips. He talks about himself, but he will not talk about opponents. So like, how are you going to hype up fights like ever? Like that's going to be a problem. Also, Yancy is usually game for a slugfest war. He never got that. He hit him once. He hit him once in the whole fight. So
I can remind you of the Tyron Woodley, Darren Till.
Yeah, right.
From last year.
Yeah, I mean, he just got dominated in grappling. He got dominated in wrestling. He could do basically whatever he wanted to Yancy. So props to him. Another win, and looks like he'll probably be facing somebody higher ranked next time. So
Joseph Benavidez, Dustin Ortiz, where we saw the gatekeeper for the flyweights, Benavidez. Right. It's actually a rematch. Yeah. He gets another win over Ortiz, and we're going to see here with Cejudo, Benavidez. Benavidez has a split decision win over Cejudo from a few years ago. So Benavidez easily has a case to get another title shot.
Right.
This has actually worked out for him if they keep the division. And if they're going to make that match next, or if Cejudo's going to move up and Benavidez has to wait, would Benavidez take another fight at that point?
I think Cejudo is just a totally different animal at this point, though. I mean, like, you saw the way that DJ finished him off in the first round, and just, like, he just didn't look like the same fighter. Like, where he's at now, he's just on another level. Striking, wrestling, everything. Like, a confidence level. So I really don't think that Benavidez could really be a true threat to him, even though he actually beat him before. I don't know. I mean, you saw Benavidez hit Ortiz with his biggest punch that he had. It did nothing. You know, it dropped him, but the lights were still on. Everything was fine. So I don't know. And this is the hang-up. It's not just about who is the champion. It's who is the contenders. You cannot have – and this is what happened with Mighty Mouse, right? Like, Mighty Mouse – no contenders really got people excited until they thought of the fight of TJ Dillashaw, and then they were like, "Oh wow, that could be a real fight," and he didn't want to do that. So that's where I struggle with the flyweights. Like, how many flyweight fights do you want to watch that doesn't involve Henry Cejudo? And if that's the case, then what if Henry Cejudo is just way better off at 135?
And that's what I think about too, because as Demetrius went to the division. You know, he had that reputation of being one of the all-time greats, if not the all-time great, but it was just like it got to the point where you kind of took for granted he was going to run through these guys, so why would I even bother watching it?
Right.
It's going to be boring.
Right.
Even though DJ got to the point he was finishing guys. You were getting these exciting finishes.
Right.
You know, the flying arm bars to having, 1 second left in a fight.
Right.
And now you got Henry Cejudo, who – like I said, he's broken through as a superstar, I think, tonight.
Yep.
But is it just a one-man division as far as selling that division?
I think that's how Dana feels.
Yeah.
I really do. I think that Dana's all in on Henry Cejudo. But if Henry Cejudo is willing to go to 135, then why does he need the flyweights? That's how I would feel.
Yeah.
So
if he can,
because let's be honest, did you really love the Benavidez versus Ortiz fight?
Well, no.
Exactly, and that's the problem. It's like, they're exciting. They're agile.
Yeah.
Not to really say exciting, but they move at a fast pace. They're agile. There's tons of transitions and all that stuff, right?
It's a different type of fight. If you want to make the comparison of pro wrestling, when you have kind of like your circus, your variety show of a little bit of everything.
Right.
With this, where you have your heavyweights who are heavy-handed, you're looking for that knockout.
Right.
That's why almost all those heavyweights are marketable, just for that factor alone.
Right.
Versus flyweights, half their size, who they're so fast, but they don't really pack as much power.
No.
Though now it looks like Cejudo does.
Right. So, I don't know. I'm still iffy on the division. I'm not going to say that I love the division, but I don't necessarily think the women's 115 division is great either. Like, I think the champion's amazing, but other than that, it's kind of like, whatever,
Right.
So, that's kind of where we're at on that.
And speaking of the women, Paige Van Zandt, Rachel Ostovich, we're at that point to where Ostovich has fought.
Yep.
She took her fight. Big props to her after everything that's happened and everything that she's been through the last few months. You have Paige Van Zandt returning after taking about a year off.
Right.
Where she had broken arm, had arm surgery. I mean, she ran over Ostovich.
Yeah.
I mean, just...
Well, the interesting thing is Ostovich was actually doing well the first round. She clearly won the first round. She could do whatever she wanted when it came to wrestling, takedowns, closing the distance.
Well,
and then the second round,
to the ground?
The second round, Paige just all of a sudden out of nowhere is just like, okay, my fight now.
Yeah.
She just took over, submitted her. If you look at Ostovich's record too, she's 4-4. Like, this thing was built for Paige to win. If Paige didn't win, then it's more than likely that they're going to move on.
Yeah.
And
for what it's worth too, Paige says, I want to fight next month.
Yeah.
I want to fight on the big ESPN show.
Which, I mean, she's going to need favorable matchups if she's going to keep advancing. Like, we've seen her face some tough fighters and it doesn't go well.
We're still seeing this flyweight division develop as well.
Agreed.
Whether it be the Ultimate Fighter show, the fighters from the show being, on the roster. One's from 115, one's from 135, making the move up or down.
Right.
So it's like I said, it's still developing. Then your champion's Valentina Shevchenko. So
I mean,
you can work your way up.
Could you imagine if they did Paige versus Joanna? Like, I mean, it would just be a total train wreck. Like, so that's where I'm saying, like, what do you do with Paige? I don't know.
So a man who's going to be coming up on the age of 40, Glover Teixeira.
Yeah.
I tell you what, this guy was in full mount at one point with Carl Robertson, and we thought the fight was easily done.
Getting blasted with elbows.
He escaped. He got out.
Nose was busted.
Made a great comeback. Got another win. Glover Teixeira, and he comes back. He survives another fight. He survives to fight another day.
Yep.
Supposedly he wants Shogun in Brazil, doing what he can for a big fight before it's time to close up shop.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't mind that.
I wouldn't mind that either. I mean, that's kind of like more so like kind of like a Bellator fight where it's like two veterans, like not necessarily real title contenders, and you put them in there and just kind of see which one can stick around, I guess. Mm-hmm. So yeah, the fight makes sense. I'm all for the fight. Glover was able to show that this young kid wasn't ready enough to take him out, and props to him for a big win.
And still, Robertson, he took the fight on short notice. He's actually from the Contender Series as well. So it was a name that they could bring up to see if they can showcase and to get a big win over a veteran. But regardless, we'll kind of see where Teixeira goes from here. He's not going to challenge for the title. I think he's just trying to get that one or two last kind of big fight, at least for him.
Yeah.
Fight in Brazil, fight a big name, and kind of go out that way.
Last fight, Donald Cerrone, Alex Hernandez. So I just want to talk about kind of the build-up of this fight. So when we did this video, like we kind of just looked up his record. I wasn't too familiar with Alex Hernandez. Man, like starting from the press conference, I was like, who is this kid? Yeah. Like he was talking unbelievable, disrespectful trash. Like just acting like he was going to blast right through Cerrone, and I was just like, wow, like is this another Darren Till situation? That's like really what it felt like. It felt like his confidence too was so like he was so sure that he was going to destroy Cerrone, and it started for me to believe it. We do a UFC fantasy deal, and I had drafted Cerrone this year, and I was like, I'm going to drop Cerrone. I think he's going to lose. I'm not going to take him because I was too worried that Alex was going to go in there and smoke him. And at the beginning of the fight, like, Alex was game, man. He went right after him. He hit him with that nice little uppercut that really rocked Cerrone a little bit. And then I was like, man, Cerrone looks slow. They had a crazy transition, too, on that takedown. Like, Alex Hernandez was kind of, like, mixing it up. They were both going through transitions. And, man, like, at some point, Cerrone was just like, I'm going to slow this pace down. I'm going to start picking this kid apart. I'm going to let him swing his wild crap at me, and then I'm going to break him down. And, man, he looked like the veteran in there that he is. He just was able to pick him apart. And I didn't feel like Alex Hernandez stock really dropped. I felt like that he looked like he belonged in those type of fights. He just fell a little short due to inexperience. So I wouldn't mind seeing him again. He won me over with his trash talking, with the style of fight, with the way that he approaches the fight game. So I appreciated that. And it looks like Cerrone caught the attention of Mr. Conor McGregor.
Yeah, I mean, even just to touch base real quick on Hernandez, it wasn't even just that he was talking trash, because so many fighters are doing that now. But the kid was undefeated as well.
Yeah.
So and he had big wins.
And not only that, like there's manufactured talking trash where they're just trying to do it. Like this kid was like literally like, I will take your soul. Like you do not impress me. I'm gonna go right through you. You're old, you're geriatric, I will not allow you to breathe in there. Like, he was just so confident and so sure.
And like he alluded to McGregor, at least on I don't know. I mean, McGregor's going to be McGregor. He said, basically, I accept, Cerrone, congratulations, you're getting the fight. Well, we're still going to see, obviously.
So the only thing I do think of that, though, is, like, usually when Conor, like, says something or agrees to something like that, he's usually pretty good with his word.
And say that they do. You know McGregor's going to want a headline, whatever pay-per-view that's going to be.
Nope.
Meaning that, and they've done this before, like we talked about when Diaz and McGregor headlined their first fight.
Yep.
They headlined over a title fight, being Tate and Holm. So that it would be a similar situation where it's got to be a top drawing champion, where they could put a title fight on there to be a co-main, but McGregor's going to want to main event.
They could easily show that footage though back when Conor was like doing a press conference talking trash about like who the F is that guy and all that stuff. Cerrone was part of that. Cerrone was calling him out during that. So they could act like this fight is like 4 or 5 years in the making. They can build it up enough. I think you could do around 2 million buys. I really do. I think Cerrone's a big fan favorite. I think Conor, no matter what he draws, I think it's a good fight for both. Just the simple fact that Conor, it's a winnable fight for Conor.
It's a great fight for both. Conor wants that rematch with Khabib, obviously. Another big fight for the title. But if they won't do that, have him beat Cerrone, and then we'll kind of go from there. More so for Cerrone, if he could actually get that fight with Conor, get that win over Conor, Cerrone could have a title shot after that.
Here's also what I wouldn't mind seeing. I wouldn't mind seeing Cerrone versus Ally Aquinta, and I wouldn't mind seeing Poirier versus Ferguson. That's going to really do some eliminations to get to that next title contender. Let Conor be in the back burner for a little bit. Let him kind of see what's going on and then make his decision then. But yeah, I think that those are going to be interesting. Also, Edson Barboza versus Justin Gaethje is supposed to happen, right? So that's going to also be a factor in this thing. So, yeah, I mean, 155 is just so stacked right now. So stacked. And we don't need a champion who doesn't want to fight.
Right.
I'm tired of that crap.
Like, no interim champion either.
No interim champion, whatever. Khabib, you are supposed to be this fighting champion. You say that Ali doesn't speak for you. You say that you're the one that's going to make the decisions. You need to fight.
Yeah.
Let's not pull this Conor McGregor BS and, like, wait it out and wait for a big fight and all this stuff. Like, fight. Just keep fighting because you're undefeated. You can win this thing, obviously. So keep fighting. Keep establishing your legacy. No more Floyd Mayweather call-outs and all this other crap. Like, do not sell out just to take an L so you can make a bunch of money. Like, forget all that garbage. So, overall, what did you think of the whole ESPN experience as a whole?
It was great. I mean, they put on a great card. You can tell the production's very similar to where it was at Fox.
Right.
They tried a couple new things. They had, like, Megan O'Leary chiming in time to time.
Trevor Whitman
chiming in about advice coming from the corners.
It feels really weird that, like, instead of Joe Rogan being the hype man, it's Stephen A. Smith.
Yeah,
that's very weird for me.
Yeah.
I will say this, though. Like, a lot of people don't know that, like, Stephen A. Smith has known about this sport for a long time. When Tito and Ken Shamrock 2 happened and they had their controversy and they set up the rematch on Spike TV, Stephen A. Smith had his own show. And he brought both of them on, like, through, like, via satellite or whatever to promote that fight. So, like, that's how long in the game. Like, he's been there. Josh Gross tweeted out that Stephen A. Smith actually was backstage when Rico Rodriguez got knocked out by Tim Sylvia at UFC 41. So, it's not like he hasn't known about this sport. I think Stephen A. Smith kind of dabbles in a lot of stuff. It shows clearly that he's not the most educated on a lot of sports. He's made a ton of errors when it comes to talking about the NFL, and I'm sure he'll do the same with the UFC.
He's got this polarizing personality, obviously, just being over the top.
Well, it's just a symbolism that they're mainstream, right? Like, if Stephen A. Smith is on TV covering this thing, that's what happens when Floyd Mayweather's fighting on boxing. You know what I mean? And now you're just talking about an ESPN Plus card and you have Stephen A. Smith talking about it.
And like you said, you can tell he's dabbled in a lot of different sports over time, including MMA. And like I brought up to you tonight, like, you didn't even know. Jonathan Coachman's working for Showtime Boxing, of all things right now. Because, I mean, that's how they are. I mean, they can.
So is he no longer with the WWE? Just done?
I guess so. I mean, he was doing the pre-shows and stuff like that, but I don't know if that's the case still. He could have a more Ronaldo type of deal where he can kind of dabble in it, different kind of promotions.
Right.
So I don't know. But, I mean, that's how these guys are. You can't just dedicate yourself to a couple of different mainstream sports, even though MMA is now going to be supposed to be getting up there with ESPN about that.
I really think that they're going to take the next step. I mean, ESPN is just a different animal. It's a different level of attention, and, you know, You can tell that there's still a lot of people that don't understand the sport. They didn't understand the Greg Hardy rule. They think that UFC is just, you can knee to the nuts and you can claw eyes and there's no rules and it's just crazy cage fighting, and it's clearly not that. So it's going to take a while to educate everyone, but overall, it's a good event. I enjoyed it. Fight of the night, Hernandez and Cerrone.
Yeah.
That's what I think. Fight of the night, Hernandez, Cerrone.
Especially that first round.
Right. Performance of the night, Cejudo. Hands down.
Right.
So, yeah, great show. And what is next for the UFC is Israel Adesanya and Anderson Silva and Gastelum. Oh, it's Brazil.
Brazil's the week before.
Damn. Okay, yeah. I can't keep
That's the next
up.
pay-per-view, though.
Right, next pay-per-view.
When they kept showing that promotion over and over tonight, you would think that
Gastelum and
nothing about Brazil.
Yeah, that's true.
So,
they really
when
did.
I say Brazil, I mean Moraes versus Assunção and Aldo versus Moicano.
Yeah.
That being the next Fight Night card in 2 weeks on ESPN+.
Which TJ Dillashaw has big vested interest in that fight, so that's pretty much the next #1 contender in that fight.
If they want to go strictly to bantamweight rankings,
right,
and not talk about any more super fights.
And in my opinion, the winner of Aldo and Moicano is facing Ortega. I just think that that's clearly what will happen.
Yeah, it makes sense either way.
Yeah, I just think that's what will happen.
I know Moicano's been on quite a run himself.
And they've had a good fight already between him and Ortega, so they could run that back. And Ortega, Aldo is money, so that would work too.
Even before that, next weekend, the big Bellator show with Ryan Bader, Fedor. They're finally going to crown the new heavyweight champion / the winner of their heavyweight Grand Prix. You got Jack Swagger, Jack Hager, making his debut. Aaron Pico back taking another fight as well.
It's a very exciting prospect. I love watching Aaron Pico fight.
And NXT TakeOver, because it's Royal Rumble weekend. NXT TakeOver Phoenix.
Yeah.
It's such a stacked card.
It's a good weekend.
Yeah.
It's a good weekend.
And then Royal Rumble itself, obviously.
So check this out, guys. Make sure you comment. Let us know what you like. Let us know what you think. Hit the like button. Hit the subscribe button. Hit the button that gets notifications every time we drop videos. Because we're bringing content. We're bringing content on all these events. And let us know what you want us to cover. Let us know what you want us to talk about. Because we have a passion for pro wrestling. We have a passion for mixed martial arts. And we're willing to talk about other things as well if we have a passion for it. So let us know. And that's what we're all about.
PWPNation.com. We actually started partnering with them. I want to send a shout out to them and Jay, who runs the site. So we're going to be posting our content exclusively on their site. I want you to check them out at pwpnation.com. You can check them out on social media, whether it be Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. They're all over the place at PWPNation. All this social media, that's where to find them. So I want to thank you guys. Thank y'all for checking us out, and we'll see y'all next weekend.
See you later.